Welcome to the Fire Time Podcast, where it's never hot enough, slow is fast, and the way to win is to make it so stupidly easy to buy from you that there's no excuse not to. I'm your host, Tim Reed. And once again, I'm so excited to be here today. Welcome to the Fire Time Podcast. And hey, we are continuing to move ahead with season 16 of the podcast. And like I said, I'm really excited to share today's episode with you because this is one that we're actually interrupting our normal cadence of episodes to bring you because we just got a hold of the audio content. So in today's episode, I'm actually going to share the audio and video from the opening session at this year's HPB Expo. It was back in New Orleans a couple of months ago, and this was a really, really neat event. And I had the pleasure of being a part of this opening session and felt like, we got to put a pause on our normal podcast cadence of episodes to get this out there because I think that the content is really, really important. Now, in the opening session, there are a few different pieces to it. So at the beginning of the opening session, Jill McClure gave an update basically on like the health and the viability of the HPBA and how they're working to try and protect and grow our industry so that retailers, distributors, and manufacturers can continue to sell products that make people's lives better and provide them warmth and comfort. Now, after this, Jessica Voss-Kehl from HHT gave an amazing presentation about how our industry needs to be thinking about AI. And I think that what she presented is truly amazing. It was really cool to be in the seats listening to it. Now, in the next part of the opening session, I was able to lead a panel discussion with three incredible experts from our industry, with Dave Rettinger out of Rettinger Fireplace Systems in New Jersey, with Deb Hanig, who's an independent sales rep, and she reps Valor and Z-Flex and some other things in the Pacific Northwest, and then Zach Fisher, who's the owner of Compact Appliances and Northeast Distribution. And what was really neat about this conversation was we tried to talk from the perspective of, okay, we have someone who represents retail, distribution, and manufacturing on the same stage. Let's have a conversation about what's really going on in the industry and the things that we need to think about if we're going to make the shift to stay viable for the future. And so from top to bottom, this was really an amazing way to open the trade show. And if you missed it, I'm super excited that you get to hear it and see it in this podcast. Now, I will say this, I was not able to get the professionally shot video from the opening session. I did have a camera up in the back. The video quality is not the greatest, but the audio is there. You can still see what's happening. And I think that the content speaks for itself. So my hope is that you can enjoy this conversation. If you have questions about how you should be thinking about AI in your business, if you've been trying to think about, in our industry, man, how do we ease the tension between retailers, distributors, and manufacturers, and where can they each be specifically bringing value to the table? This is the conversation for you. So with that said, I'll step out of the way so that you can hear the HPB Expo opening session. And as always, we'll circle back at the end and I'll share a few parting thoughts.
So one of the things I love about this industry is how many of you are here with your families, working together, siblings, parents, children, spouses, all contributing to the business day in and day out. Much of this industry has been shaped by family, people who chose this path because someone in their family showed them the way, and many who continue to work alongside their family every day. This happens to be a special HPB Expo for me because my kids are here for the very first time. They have heard all about the cool and essential products this industry provides, and that this industry is full of good-hearted, kind people. It feels full circle for our family because it's been 14 years since they've come to one of Mom's trade shows. Now they're 15 and 17. Many of you know what this means. They're finally old enough to be put to work. So here's the last time they were at one of my trade shows. We were living in Colorado. They were 1 in 4. I was juggling toddlers and show logistics like a circus act. And yes, it has been suggested that we recreate this photo. So if any of you packed a pair of pink boots, let me know. Family. That's exactly what we'll be celebrating in our new fireside chats this week. Relaxed, real conversations with different generations in the industry, showing and sharing how their family connection influenced their career and business. And you'll hear a legendary conversation between Karen Harmon-Smeltz and Dane Harmon. And you'll also hear from our HPBA chair, Chris Richardson, and his father, Don Richardson. And finally, a conversation between Haley Hassick and our 2024 Retailer of the Year, Joan Nutting, all in the HPBA membership booth. That's what this industry is all about, people and relationships. So let me say something we all understand. Running a hearth, chimney, or outdoor living business is tough. Customers are careful with spending. Rules and regulations keep changing. Good employees are hard to find and keep. And there never seems to be enough time in the day. When you're trying to run a business, support your team, and take care of customers, it can feel like you're doing it all on your own. But it doesn't have to be that way. This is why the HPBA is here. For you. We exist to help you protect your business, grow your business, and adapt your business to stay relevant as the market changes. When it comes to regulations, every business in our industry needs someone to have their back. That's why the HPBA is advocating to represent and amplify your voice when laws, codes, and regulations are being written. This past year, HPBA and our affiliates invested $1.4 million to protect member interests. And how do we do that? We depend on experts like Carolyn Loeb and Jason Tollison. They guide our policy strategies, and they're available firsthand to work with legislators and regulators. We also depend on the coordinated efforts of our affiliates and you, our members, to advocate on behalf of our industry. In addition, we held our first congressional fly-in since 2018, with 4 dozen members joining us on Capitol Hill. Members and staff had more than 50 face-to-face meetings with lawmakers and legislative staff in DC. HPBA members on the Hill, this means real conversations with decision makers about the rules that affect your products, your customers, and your livelihood. If you were a part of the 2025 congressional fly-in, please stand and remain standing. Thank you for using your voice on behalf of the industry and taking the time to advocate. Thank you. You shouldn't have to fight these battles alone. To that end, today, we're announcing the creation of the HPBA Political Action Committee to strengthen our industry's voice in Washington. This U.S. member-only PAC allows us to support federal candidates who know and stand with our industry. As required by the FEC, this is important, we must get your permission, your approval, before soliciting contributions to the PAC. When you see the HPBA membership booth today, your one must-do item there is to sign up so you can be informed about this powerful new tool for our industry. Now, let's talk about growing your business. When it comes down to growth, we need 3 things: better information, better relationships, and better products. Let's start with better information. A lot of businesses make the wrong decision because they didn't have the right information to begin with. That's why HPBA created the Member Resource Center with practical tools for you and your team, like product guides, consumer one-pagers, even an advocacy toolkit you can use locally. We're also adding to it every time we hear something new that you need. The HPBA Consumer and Market Research can help you understand the buying trends, and our industry data reports show where demand is heading and changing. If you want better information so you can make informed decisions, take advantage of these resources. In order to win, your business needs to be connected to the right relationships. That's why HPBA affiliates and HPBAC host regional events, annual meetings, education, lobby days. These events are hosted across the entire continent where you can meet peers in your area, and together you have the chance to learn, network, and participate in grassroots advocacy. Many thanks to our affiliate executive directors and our HPBA Canada president who serve and support members every day, making sure these opportunities for connection happen in every region. If you will all stand, executive directors and Laura, to be recognized. Thank you. And I want to thank our affiliate board members, our HPBA board and HPBAC board, who volunteer their time and leadership to keep our HPBA network strong. Please stand if you are serving on an affiliate board, the HPBA board or the HPBAC board. Thank you for your leadership and dedication to this industry. Just yesterday, we held our annual retailer roundtables again, a peer-to-peer private session to talk about the real business challenges that you all are going through. I've heard from some retailers that this is the most important and valuable thing they do all week. Special thanks to our amazing industry volunteers who offer their time to guide the conversations as facilitators. What a wonderful way to share ideas and connect the people that are going through those same challenges. When we think about the relationships that we enjoy through HPBA, I think about the Women's Mentoring Program. The program has been going strong, now in its 5th year, launched originally by former staff member Rachel Feinstein in 2021, and then facilitated over the past few years by Amy Ryan and Shannon Good. We're excited to say that after receiving feedback from our industry's women, it will now be called the HPBA Women's Industry Network and will continue as a hub for connection and support. I look forward to being with them Friday morning for networking and discussion. The purpose of all of this, affiliate events, retailer roundtables, the Women's Industry Network, is to provide you with intentional spaces so you build the right relationships to grow your business. And our industry wouldn't exist without incredible products for you to stand out in your industry, in your market. That's one way HPB Expo brings the industry together. You can see what's new and make smart buying decisions. Right downstairs, we'll all parade down there together in just a bit to see over 300 brands showing new products on display in our new product pavilion, and over 7 million BTUs of live product demos, so you can see items in action, almost double what the show had 2 years ago. This means new ideas for your showroom. It means new ideas or new partners to do business with. It means new revenue opportunities for your company. That's how businesses grow. And finally, let's talk about adapting your business. The market keeps changing. Customers' expectations change. Technology changes. Boy, does it. Strong businesses keep learning and adjusting, and it's a requirement to survive. HPBA helps you stay ready with over 50 CEUs available at expert-led sessions. HPBA members get discounts on NFI training and certifications and professional development programs like the Government Affairs Leadership Academy. There's been speculation over the past few years about HPBA's ability to be here for the long haul. Well, we're not going anywhere. Our organization paid off debt from that period and has restored its reserves. That means a stable association that can keep investing in programs and support for members. Running a business is hard, and it can feel lonely, but it doesn't have to be that way. You don't have to keep up with change alone. You don't have to make decisions without the right information. You don't have to figure everything out by yourself. The HPBA exists to protect what you've built, to grow your business, and to prepare you for what's coming next. We're so glad you're here. This is the reunion we've all been waiting for. Let's have a fantastic few days together. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your membership in HPBA. It's my honor to introduce today's keynote. I had the privilege of working with Jess Voss-Kehl on the HPBA Board of Directors. She was our chairperson of our new governance task force. And boy, she made a mark on this association. Just her attention to detail and drive for clarity were impeccable. And our board still operates differently today because of her contribution. She is a vice president at Hearth and Homes Technologies, and she's in charge of innovation there. And you are going to get to hear her reframe something that we're all talking about, how AI is going to impact our industry, how it's going to impact you, your customers, and your day-to-day. So please join me in welcoming Jessica Voss-Kehl.
The most important disruptions don't arrive loudly. They arrive quietly through changing expectations, habits, and assumptions. We rarely notice it right away, but we do notice it when customers start behaving differently. And for many industries, by the time they noticed, someone else had already redefined the customer experience for them. I'd like to ask a simple question. No need to answer out loud, just think. When a customer arrives in your showroom today, what do you believe they already expect from the experience? How informed do they expect to be? How quickly do they expect answers to their questions? How confident before deciding to make a large purchase? Those expectations are the real story behind disruption. Not technology, not products, changing customer expectations. And the reason the expectations are changing has less to do with our industry and more to do with what's going on in people's lives. Most people don't use a tool for a tool's sake. They have a need. They think, I want ideas. I want to build confidence. I don't want to waste my time. AI already writes their emails, tells them what to watch next, helps them with shopping. By the time customers walk into your showroom today, they are no longer at square one. They're somewhere between curiosity and conviction. AI is already augmenting human expertise in retail, and you don't have to use these tools yourself to be judged against them. Most of us know the pain of online shopping, the endless scrolling, the filters that never quite work, the feeling that the more choice you have, the harder it is to choose. Target has just flipped that model on its head by launching the first of its kind curated conversational shopping tool right inside ChatGPT. Instead of searching for products, Target lets you talk Talk about the type of experience you're trying to create. I am planning a family movie night, and it comes back with a curated selection of options from its whole catalog to help you plan that experience. Lowe's takes this one step further with their Milo that lets you ask questions about projects in plain language. How do I fix a leaky faucet? And instead of generic search results, it gives you step-by-step project instructions with material lists and product recommendations. And that builds confidence at scale. And those experiences translate into expectations that carry into your stores. I know what you're thinking. My customers aren't early adopters. But expectations shift even when adoption is uneven. Let me show you how this shift can show up at home. Be vulnerable here. This is a photo of my clearly much unloved basement. I snapped a photo with my iPhone and I uploaded it to an AI consumer imaging tool. I asked it to remove the rowing machine and the plywood and to add a modern linear electric fireplace and anything else needed to finish the look. 30 seconds later, I was absolutely delighted. And now I need an expert to help me make the right choices and turn this vision into a reality. This moved from something that we've been talking about doing for years to something that we absolutely will do. Once someone has seen the solution in their room, even virtually, they cross an emotional line from curiosity to confidence. These shifts explain why customers walk in better informed, faster to ask specific questions, and less tolerant of delays. This customer already exists. And my purpose today is not to create fear around this fact. It's to explain why that reality actually reinforces the importance of the hearth specialist. How many of you are experimenting with AI in your personal lives? How many of you feel behind on AI or a little unsure of where to start? And that's okay. How many of you believe you at least need to understand this better? That diversity of responses is exactly why this conversation matters. This is about choosing whether we define the next chapter or react to it. Your challenge is not knowledge, it's capacity. You are rich in expertise and constrained by time, staffing, and consistency. Here's how that shows up. Great conversations happen depending on who your customers get to talk to. Quotes and revisions take longer than anyone wants, and follow-ups slip even with the best of intentions. Your skilled employees spend a lot of time on things that don't require their level of expertise. Nothing is broken. Too many things are simply slower and more painful than they need to be. Let me be clear about what this is not. This is not about replacing salespeople. It's not about removing judgment. You decide where AI is allowed and where it isn't. You make the rules. Let me walk you through one real familiar scenario first as it works today. The customer arrives at your showroom halfway through an online journey. You'll be excited, but a little uncertain. Your best salesperson spends at least 45 minutes with them, understanding the space, walking through options, determining finishes, and then choices, measurements, install variables, notes, disclaimers are all manually added to the quote, never completely accurate. Once you get on site realities force changes, and the customer pauses. Maybe they're overwhelmed. Maybe momentum is lost. Maybe they still just can't see it. You try, you call, you email. Sometimes you miss, and sometimes they drift. Nothing went wrong. Everything just took longer than it needed to. And here's what happens when capacity issues persist. Not because anyone failed, but because expectations kept moving. The experience gap widens. Customers don't say, "This took too long." They say, "We're still thinking," and they quietly disengage. Your best people become throughput bottlenecks. Your skilled members burn out, and your new employees struggle because the knowledge just doesn't scale. Or worse, someone else defines good enough for the customer. Non-specialists could jump in and control the early narrative. The greatest risk here isn't adopting AI poorly. It's assuming that your current capacity will still meet tomorrow's expectations. Now let's walk through that exact scenario again, this time with AI support layered in. During the conversation, a virtual assistant quickly presents 2 to 3 visual options that take into account budget, venting constraints, and style and space limitations so that you and the customer share the same vision quickly. All of those selections then autofill a quote, ready for expert review, so it's faster with fewer mistakes. If a deal stalls, the system automatically drafts a helpful, non-pushy email in your voice so that no one falls out of their buying journey for lack of follow-up. And there's embedded checklists and notes in throughout the process, making consistency for newer staff. So there's less reliance on tribal memory. These capabilities exist today in separate tools and imperfectly. There isn't one system that you can get off the shelf, but they're becoming accessible faster than most people realize. Notice, the specialist never disappears. The specialist becomes more available because routine work is supported and expertise shows up where it matters most. Expertise is not automated. It's amplified. I'll share a secret with you now. The technology is an enabler. It's not the driver. Resistance to AI is usually not about the tools. It's about a fear of losing craft, breaking what works, and change fatigue. But change management at its core is about helping people move from what's familiar to what's new without losing confidence or momentum. That means creating space for your teams to talk openly about their fears, involving them early, giving them ways to experiment with these tools to see the benefits for themselves. The goal isn't to force adoption, but instead to build trust, clarity, and readiness so that the transition feels empowering rather than disruptive. Acknowledging that consumer expectations have already changed and that the challenges we face have practical supports, we have a choice. And I'd like to offer up a challenge. In the next 30 days, identify one large problem area where time disappears, customers stall, or your team feels stretched. Ask, how could AI be our business partner here? Not to replace us, but to support us. Run one small, measurable, reversible experiment to address that problem. And in 30 days, assess the experiment, decide what to keep, what to change, and what to stop. Hearth specialists who thrive in the future will pair human knowledge with intelligent tools to meet their customers where they're at and empower their teams to focus on what they do best. Innovation does not mean abandoning all that makes this industry great, but it does mean adapting before someone else defines our future for us. The quiet part is already happening. The choice is when and how intentionally you respond. Thank you.
Hey, this is Tim from the Fire Time podcast, and I hope you're enjoying this episode. Hey, if you're in a situation where you have been struggling with sales and you're trying to find the right tools to help your team grow, then you have to check out Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi are something that we've been working on for the last 8 years, and these are tools made to help fireplace companies sell more products, whether in your showroom or on your website. Just recently, we announced an AI fireplace visualizer where with every website that we build, you can have each of your fireplaces set up to where a customer can snap a picture of their home. It will visualize that fireplace in it so they can absolutely imagine what it will be like, and then you can quote it out for them to buy. To get a demo of this, you can go to wifire.com. Every company in our industry needs the right tools to grow sales. Wifire is going to give you that. So check out wifire.com. Make sure to look at the AI fireplace visualizer because it's absolutely mind-blowing. Hope you enjoy the rest of this episode.
Thank you, Jessica. That was excellent. You know, as Jessica was speaking, I kept thinking, I just lived this. My family and I, we needed a new family car. So, you know, in the past, that would have meant months of research. That would have meant comparing. Boy, I'd love to dig into the research. It would have been 37 browser tabs open for several months. Instead, one Saturday morning, I was like, it's time. Let's do this. Coffee in hand. I looked at my computer, found my favorite AI tool. That is my mug. Put in my first prompt. Best safety record. I have 2 teenagers learning to drive. This vehicle is basically a moving anxiety container, for me at least. So the next prompt, what's the safest car color? White. Done. Then, which dealerships near me have the best reviews for sales and service that sell this make and model and have it in stock right now in white? AI gave me a short list, and I picked one, 7 minutes from my home, and using their chat bot, I got connected with a salesperson, and we started texting. We confirmed the car was indeed there, negotiated the price, all before setting foot on the lot. I scheduled a test drive 1 hour before closing because I was not spending my Saturday waiting at a dealership. My dad was a used car manager, and he taught me how to negotiate a car deal. And he said it might take a while, the back and forth and the behind the scenes while the management's signing off on the deal. Boy, Dad would not have believed just how little time this took. We walked in, car was ready. My husband and I both drove it. 20 minutes later, yep, this is it. And then came the add-ons, tire packages, warranties, financing options. And every time they offered something, I said, hang on a second, pulled out my phone, quickly got some facts, calculations, some rationale. And what would normally have taken hours to happen happened in minutes, right there at the desk. And this is what struck me most. The sales team, they didn't flinch. They didn't get defensive. They didn't roll their eyes. They brought their expertise in a fantastic in-person demo of all the gadgets and features that made that car a top seller. AI brought the data, and then together we made a confident decision. Fastest car purchase of my life. I left feeling informed, like my time wasn't wasted, and I felt genuinely served. The buying journey is changing, not just for cars, for everything. Your customers are showing up differently. They're deciding differently and at a faster speed. So the question isn't when will AI shape the customer journey? It already has. Our question today is, how will our industry evolve with it? So here to dig into our evolving industry, I'm excited to invite our panelists to the stage, whom you'll meet in just a few minutes. Now, I'm really excited to introduce you to our moderator today. And this is someone I always enjoy talking with about the industry. Tim and I first bonded over our shared appreciation for Donald Miller's work, along with the Enneagram and Seth Godin, which means our conversations tend to either be incredibly philosophical or incredibly nerdy, probably both. And my friend, probably also yours, Tim Reed. Please welcome him. Tim Reed from Firetime Magazine.
I mean, that was amazing hearing what Jessica and Jill said. Yeah, because our industry really is in the middle of a shift right now. Like whether we realize it or not, we're in the midst of a shift of technology. We're in the midst of a shift of the customer experience. And we're in the middle of a shift of how we give value to the people who are looking at our products. And whether we realize it or not, we are caught in the midst of this and we have to make a decision as to how we respond. So what we wanted to do today is to have a panel discussion with three prominent leaders in our industry, one from a retailer, an independent sales rep, and a distributor to talk about making the shift so that we can stay relevant. And to do that, we really have to understand the cultural moment that we're in. So with me today are Dave Rettinger, Deb Hanig, and Zach Fisher. Now, Dave is a retailer out of the New Jersey area. He runs Rettinger Fireplace Systems. Dave is someone, he's one of the smartest people I've ever met. And he has an incredible combination of business acumen to run and to scale his company, but a massive heart to serve the people that work for him and his customers. It's really, really unique. Deb Hanig is someone who's been just a legendary sales rep in the Pacific Northwest out of the state of Washington. And she worked with Tom Pugh many years ago and just has a deep, deep understanding of the sales process. Like for myself, when I was a much younger salesperson, Deb really poured into me. And a lot of the things that I teach today come from her and her guidance. So really excited to have Deb. Zach Fisher runs two distributors. He has Compact Appliances in Sackville, New Brunswick, Northeast Distribution in the New England area. And again, for anybody that knows Zach and their entire family business, I mean, these people are legendary. He does very high level work with manufacturers and at the same time has a very boots on the ground mentality to serve his dealers incredibly well. So we felt like if we're going to have a discussion about making this shift, it would be wise to have, the various parties of our industry involved. And so we're going to just have a family discussion and just pretend we're in the living room and we're going to do it here. So the first question I want to ask, and actually, Dave, I want to start with you as a retailer. Over the last 5 years, we've just had an absolute just roller coaster of experiences in our industry. And the landscape has completely changed. If we think about, where we were in 2021 compared to right now. And so I want to start by asking what in particular is different about today's customer than the customer 5 years ago?
Well, Tim, thank you so much for the kind intros for all of us. And what more can I add to what Jessica just laid out for us? My gosh, that was phenomenal. And the two things that come to mind as far as our perspective on the ground at Rettinger is the customers are, they're distracted. They have a lot of options and they don't have a lot of time. So therefore, it ups the pace at which they want to move. And often I see, as Jessica pointed out, that our capacity can sometimes not meet that demand. And like she also mentioned, it depends on who they're going to talk to in the business and our ability to, be the company the community needs us to be, to, present the customer who's coming in with a pretty clear vision. It's amazing when customers show up. It was one of our favorite things to say is we like to begin with the end in mind here at Rettinger. So do you have a picture of what you want this to look like? They're coming in droves with this perfectly, we don't have to, paint any picture. They've already painted it for us. So how can we articulate to get us from where they're at today to their vision? And, I believe that when we don't keep momentum, that we are our own worst enemy in that process.
Yeah, that's great. Deb and Zach, I'm curious for you guys too, where have you seen just, the consumer experience change?
Well, I think that, definitely consumers are coming and more educated, more vision with what they want to see. But I think retailers need to keep in mind that we're selling an experience. So we are selling an appliance, but we are competing for the discretionary dollars that may end up, if not with us, with the boating industry or a Harley Davidson or an RV.
Mm-hmm.
And what I find is that retailers have to be mindful of who their real competitors are in a marketplace. It's all of those things, not just the other hearth retailer down the street. Because if we can't win them over and help them feel the experience of owning a fireplace, we will lose them to another experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so I still think the showroom is a very strong tool for that. Where else can we immerse them in that experience and help them to create the vision of what it will be like in their home and in their future? Because this affects their family memories, all these different points in their lives.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and Dave and Deb covered a lot of it there, Tim, but what I will add is the speed of which these consumers are moving is incredible. And I do think as the hearth retailer, works at staying relevant, we need to meet that intensity or we will lose to that competing priority, and that money's going to go elsewhere. I mean, you look at other consumer industries right now, they are extremely effective at taking your money and taking it quickly.
Yeah.
So if we can't do that as an industry, I think we will struggle. The other thing Deb mentioned was selling experiences. Generations. I'm a millennial, so I can speak to this. I think, but the current consumer generations, they want to buy experiences. They're not really buying goods.
Yeah.
They're buying something that's going to offer them a longer term experience in their home. And ultimately, they also want to post that on social media and share that with others. So I think that's where we are.
Yeah.
These days.
I love that you guys said that. And in particular, I'm thinking about Dave, you said the word momentum. And this is really important for us as an industry to understand. Sales is a game of momentum. It is a game of momentum. Now, momentum can be built slowly, it can be built faster, but it cannot slow down. And I think that's a really important concept for us to be thinking about. Also, along those lines, like thinking about AI, Richard Foreman has a term that he says in today's age, as there's more and more information available, a lot of our customers are like pancake people, very wide with information, but very shallow in wisdom to apply it. And this goes to Jessica's point that AI, if used well, is not going to eliminate the hearth expert, right? Our customers are coming in with a wider base of information, but it is up to us to be able to take our wisdom and bring depth to that. So I think that's really true. I want to ask a question based on what you just said, Zach. You were talking about how people are buying experiences. And I think it's fair to say that we have moved into a service economy. Like we live in a service economy now. People will pay money to have things served on their terms. And again, companies like Spotify, Adobe, Amazon Prime, like they've trained us in this. What opportunity does that present us in our industry?
Yeah, I would like to comment on that. When it comes to the distraction of the customer and their expectations of us to, again, demonstrate that wisdom and give us the fastest path to the goal line, I believe people want more value and they don't want more things to do. So we've noticed a trend towards the white glove, the all in. Jessica and Jill are mentioning these bolt-on services that, and I've heard it said by a wise mentor of mine that if you're not giving choices, you're giving ultimatums. So when we provide the customer with a menu of those service options and let them choose, pick your own journey, they appreciate it, and also ultimately increases your average ticket sale. And I also believe that the new consumer is priding themselves on having their life dialed in and that set it and forget it mentality. So if we can offer them things like either a quarterly or biannual service maintenance plan for some of these higher end units, they pride themselves on not having to think about it, and they'll pay for that service all day long.
So you said something there with like the quarterly and the yearly service plans. To me, it's like, we've talked about this, like our products need to be serviced, like they need to be. So it's either going to be us that's doing it or it's going to be somebody else. Like, that's the bottom line. And it may as well be us. Like, I know you guys have put a huge emphasis on this in your business. Like, would you say, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like, if you're not offering annual service contracts at the very least, like, is that a very foolish mistake?
I will say it's foolish, though I empathize with, it's easy to sell, hard to deliver. So, we have made heavy investments in trying to grow the staff to meet that demand. So I do understand why people are hesitant to offer these plans. And, like Jill and Jessica said, the capacity is the bottleneck to growth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Deb, we had a conversation in preparation for this about tires, and I'd love to hear like how this relates.
Tim and I were talking about sales being complicated, different types of products. And I started to talk about tires because that's what I do. I'm a real car fanatic. Tim is not.
No, I'm not. Sorry.
So when I think about the tires on my cars, I know the brands that each car has. I know the size. I know the PSI. I know my preferred PSI. But if you run into 10 people on the street, really only 2 to 3 of them would know any of those things. Now, say we step into a universe where Les Schwab hasn't shown up yet. And when we go to the tire store, they want us to go back home, go to Amazon, buy a tool to measure the depth of our tread, measure our own tire height, and come back and tell them what PSI we should have. This all sounds really complex, but we would do it. And the reason we would do it is because we all need tires. No one needs a fireplace. There are many, many other options to make a home aesthetically pleasing and create alternative heating. They come to you because they desire a fireplace. And we have to find the smoothest system to gather all of that information for them, make the job seamless, and build a sales process and a long-term relationship for you and the consumer together.
I think it's so important, right? And it goes back to like how many times, and again, I've been guilty of this in the past. Like, how many times have we sent a customer home with homework to go like measure up their fireplace? It's like, you're telling me I'm going to go to my house, measure this, like drive 20 minutes back to you just for you to tell me how much the thing that you have on the sales floor costs? Like, what are we doing here? And I think that your point about the tires is really valid. I'm curious too, Deb, just for you, like, how do you participate in the service economy?
Well, I hold service contracts for many things at my home. I have my landscaper dialed in. I have my HVAC dialed in for that because I'm very forgetful come heating system. I'm busy with other things or heating season. But I also have a service contract on my vehicles with my car dealerships. And I know that we tend to be very hesitant because of our view of service contracts in our industry, but I think we really need to change that paradigm. I see service contracts not as this painful addition to the end of the selling process, but as the ultimate commitment to customer service. You are saying, not only would I like to sell you this appliance, but I'd like to commit to your long-term journey and satisfaction with the manufacturer, the product, and now with our retail location. We want to be the guys that you come to first next time, just to see if we carry something that we can add on to your home.
Yeah, 100%. I want to ask a pointed question to you, Zach. I think this is really important. Distributors are in a spot of kind of being squeezed from both sides. And in today's world, with so many products being offered direct, how does a distributor still bring value?
Sure. I mean, it's a big question. It's certainly one we ask ourselves a lot, as you can imagine, and I hope every distribution company does. Firstly, we need manufacturer partners that trust us, and we need those brands. So there's that piece of it. But what I'll get into today is really the 3, clear value streams. There is more, but we'll work with the 3 for today. And really how we interact with the dealer, because ultimately we need those dealers to keep coming back.
Yeah.
So the first one, and really the most obvious, is we're a giant warehouse. We've got tons of liquid inventory. You guys can order it as you need it. There's visibility to it. All of that that's wonderful. The other thing is, North America is a huge place, as most of you have traveled to be here. So I think we can all recognize that. And freight is a real challenge and is a huge pressure on margin. So I do think distribution largely mitigates that just by the way our relationship works with the manufacturers and how we buy. Secondly is, I truly believe that when you're purchasing through distribution, your team really, really expands exponentially. Whether it be back in New Brunswick or New Hampshire right now, even as of today, there's 20 plus folks sitting in the office that can't wait for you to call so that they can help you. That's also a mindset. So there's a leadership aspect to that. But, we want the dealer to be tapping into the decades of experience that we have on staff. We pride ourselves on being experts, just like dealers and manufacturers do as well. So we really grow that support network. And then the third one, and arguably maybe the most fun, but the third one I would summarize as, that distribution keeps you better informed. It keeps you current with what's going on in the rest of the industry. So how we accomplish that is a few different ways, but both of our companies prioritize inviting our customers into our businesses and sharing borderline too much with them sometimes. So there's an element of transparency, but also we have these, both Compact and Northeast have these annual open houses, 2-day events where we show as much hospitality as we can. We say thank you as much as we can, but we also then take the product out of the box. We train, we transfer as much knowledge as we can in those 2 days, and we send those dealers back, hopefully better informed than they were when they came to us that 2 days before. So the approach we take on that side is really, it's our responsibility as distributors to, not everyone's at Expo. So our goal is to take what we're here at Expo for, take that back to our local markets and replicate that in a way where those dealers can benefit.
Yeah, that's good. I think you said something about partnership. I want to get to that in just 1 second. But kind of to round out this part of the conversation about the customer journey, I think it's safe to say over the last 10 to 15 years, our products have gotten more complicated. Like, is that fair to say? Show of hands in the room. Like, we sell more complicated products. Yeah, 100%. I think that we really have to focus on making things easier. Like, as our products get more and more complex, we can't pass that on to the consumer. It has to stay easy for them. Why do you guys feel like that's so important in your different areas of business?
I think that it's been said before, our jargon doesn't serve us. I think when we try to demonstrate how much we know, we confuse people. And I think there's a lot of ego in that. And with the sales, you mentioned with the momentum, there's no question that our knowledge can be the biggest barrier to a decision. Because if we start just vomiting on people information and specifications and, how much we know, they leave more confused and less confident. It detracts from the relationship. And the other thing I'd like to point out, the customer doesn't know what's ahead. Even if you tell them, here's the quote, this is what you're going to get, explaining to them the path and demonstrating that you've been here before and that you can get them there, even if they don't understand every last nuance to it, I think just eases their minds and makes them more confident to place an order and to commit to you.
Yeah, 100%. Deb, what comes to your mind in how we need to think about making it easy for customers?
Again, I think it's important to build on the momentum of the emotional desire that they're bringing to you. It's an emotional purchase. Money is emotional at any time we spend it. And different generations relate differently to expenditures, and especially long-term ones. This is like a 25-year commitment they're about to make with a fireplace, with you. And we need to be respectful of that. So information dumping on consumers or forgetting our ratio, 2 ears, 1 mouth. It's important to stay in their rhythm, keep their momentum going and help it to gain. each time that we stop and correct them and we explain our magical vocabulary that we have, it sometimes can create separation between them and their emotional desire. Okay. So we start throwing all this logic and book knowledge at it. And the truth is we're translators. I always see myself as a mediator. If I'm in a retail showroom, it's between the product and the consumer.
Yeah.
If I'm selling to a dealer, then I'm a translator there. So our job is to do all that work behind the scenes and make it all appear very seamless to them. Sometimes when you're talking to consumers, one person explains a fireplace one way, the husband explains it another way. And I always just joke and say, so do you guys live in the same house? And so we need to make light of it. We can gather the information with a lot of trickery that we can do with questions. It doesn't have to all play out in front of them.
Yeah. I think it's so important to think about that. Like a fundamental question everyone needs to be asking is, how can I make it easier for my customers to do business with me? How can I do that? Are there paradigms I believe that are just not true, where we can make it easier? I want to close by asking this question. I think this is really important. Now, my observation, this is a generalization, but I think that right now we're at a point in our industry where the level of trust between dealers, manufacturers, distributors is lower than I've seen. Not in every case, but I would say that generally speaking, that's at least what I observe. How do we increase the trust between the different levels of our industry?
I can start by saying manufacturers have a tremendous amount of data, and they also have great teams that can analyze that. I mean, to have Jessica in our corner would be pretty monstrous here.
Yeah.
So to give us a path towards using that data, and also I've mentioned this to Zach too, we do business and like just the rhythms of the year. Dealers are very overwhelmed, on a day-to-day basis. Sometimes don't know, what's coming next week or tomorrow. So, when manufacturers and distributors can partner with the retailer, boots on the ground, to, just be that guiding light through the rhythms of the season and to help them be better planners. Because I think that, we are just trying to get through the day and try to take care of as many people as possible and retain our staff in the process and keep everybody safe and happy. So I think that manufacturers stepping in from a, data, a strategic planning as well as the training standpoint.
Yeah.
I think that trust is enhanced when we decide to be business partners. I don't actively sell to my retailers. I don't envision it like that. I see myself as from Seattle. So I'm a 12th man, and I'm everybody's 12th man. I want to be the 12th man for my manufacturers and for my retailers and consumers so that we can mediate the best possible outcome for everyone. And that has to do with transparency. I think COVID taught us a great deal about needing more transparency and openness in our industry. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of those tools that have come into play because of that period of time have been really valuable for us with continuing relations. But we have to, again, respect it as a partnership.
Mm-hmm.
I would tend to agree with you, Tim. I do think we're at a bit of a low point, but I also don't think that's anyone's fault. As we look at the past 5 years, we've all lived and continue to live through an incredible amount of uncertainty. And there's been some tough questions that there simply hasn't been answers for. All that said, I do believe it's a long-term investment. I mean, we're intentionally creating a long relationship with, whether it be manufacturers, dealers, any of them. You look around the industry, most of the relationships are old.
Yeah.
That said, though, I will say I do feel, that I'm in a very privileged position to answer this question, as I have, I've been a part of two very good companies that have set an incredible example on how to do this. So I do feel uniquely qualified to comment on it. That said, there's simple answers, but I truly believe, these few things really build trust. So like I said, simple, but do what you say you're going to do. I think everyone in here really expects that from you. Mm-hmm. And then you need to do that consistently. And then you need to be mindful that the little things destroy trust and
Mm-hmm.
confidence. And if you're not approaching something that's worth doing is worth doing right. And we just all need to expect that from one another. Secondly, manufacturers, distributors, dealers all have their own unique complexities that make business hard. Not everything goes smooth. And we need to be empathetic to our partners when their business is going through a struggle or a tough time. We need to be there to support and not be so critical all the time. And then, one more thing is we need to celebrate each other. We need to celebrate the wins. We need to get out of our own way and, recognize that when Dave wins, I'm winning, Deb's winning, and a whole lot of other people are winning.
Yeah.
And then lastly, that all takes really good leadership. So again, privileged position that I've had that example, but it's got to be pushed down through the company, and it's got to be something that, we all embody.
Yeah, I love that. St. Thomas Aquinas said that love is willing the good of the other. And I think that that's how trust is built, right? You will the good of the other. If you're a manufacturer, will the good of your distributors, will the good of your reps, will the good of your dealers, right? If you're a distributor, same thing on both sides. If you're a dealer, will the good of your customers. I think that that is the foundation we need to build on. And Zach, there's a conversation that we had a number of years ago, actually with your dad, and he said something about your guys' business. And he said, our job is to create prosperity for our customers. And I've never forgotten that. And I think that if that is our approach at every level of the business, we're trying to create prosperity for the people that we serve. I think that trust will be built, and I don't think we'll be headed in the wrong direction. So thank you guys so much for being here. Did this give you guys value? Yeah? Awesome. Thank you. Well, I hope you enjoyed the opening session from this year's HPB Expo. Like I said up front, I think that this was a really, really powerful way to open the trade show. And I was really honored to get to host that panel discussion. But man, there is so much here to take away. So first off, I think that Jessica just killed it with how she talked about the rise of AI. And the reality is, whether we like it or not, our customers are going to be using AI. Our competitors, our vendors are going to be using AI. And so we have to make the decision, how will we respond to that? And I don't think that that means we need to throw out everything we've ever done. We need to replace humans with robots because they'll be able to do it more efficiently. I'm not saying that, but we do need to respond, and we need to do it in an intentional way. And the way that Jessica talked about the consumer shopping is absolutely right. Like, your customers are already operating this way. When Jill talked about buying the car, man, this is how people are shopping. And the cool thing is that I believe, we'll talk more about this in future episodes, I believe that right now in the age of AI, it is actually positioned local retailers to crush big box and e-commerce. I think that the local retailer actually matters more in the age of AI than ever before. And there is an unshoppable advantage if you can position yourself correctly. We'll talk about that, in future episodes. But what Jessica said is very, very true. I mean, we just know, like, from the work that we've done at Wi-Fi, like, as she was outlining, hey, like, there's not a system that exists that does this, and this. I actually came up to her after the show and I was like, oh man, you got to come by the Wi-Fi booth, because that's exactly what we've been trying to work on. And as we've been going on that journey, basically she described like exactly what Wi-Fi does. As we've been going on that journey, it has just reinforced that this is how people are shopping and this is how we have to think. And so I was really encouraged listening to her because, if you've been trying to figure out like, okay, maybe it's a little bit early, but like, what if we could use AI to make a task a little bit easier for somebody who doesn't understand fireplaces? What if we could use AI to help with some visualization in one way, shape, or form? That is the right direction. And I think that as AI becomes more and more prevalent, we can actually use it to leverage what our humanity can bring to the table in a way that was not as present before. And I guess a simple example of this is like, so many companies have like a million tasks, and they would say, well, I don't have time to make a personal phone call after every installation, or I don't have time to send thank you cards to every customer because I'm too busy with, XYZ, whatever it is, emails, quotes, price increases, that sort of thing. Well, man, by utilizing AI, you could take, say, a price increase, what used to take 8 hours, and probably reduce that down to 15 to 45 minutes with a little bit of work and effort. And all of that time that used to be allocated for crunching numbers and getting frustrated at how the CSV doesn't format right for QuickBooks or whatever system you use, you can now spend a portion of that time making personal calls to customers and checking in on how the product is doing, sending thank you notes. This is how we leverage our humanity. We can automate the things that we don't want to deal with and that suck our time and our humanity away, and we can use the extra time to give a real tangible human touch to what we do. So absolutely something that needs to be thought about. I mean, I feel like I could talk forever about the panel discussion. Since I was a part of it, I'll try to let that speak for itself. But there were some really, really wise things that were said in that. When Deb was talking about tires and that whole example of like, she knows all these things about her tires. Most people don't. And this is exactly how it is with fireplaces. And, yes, when it comes to tires, maybe people will do some amount of homework. But I mean, just listen to what she said when she's like, but you have to have tires. You don't have to have a fireplace. That's the truth. If we continue to make things difficult for our customers, they will stop buying because they don't have to have our product. And I think that this is something that we really need to understand as an industry. People don't have to buy what we sell. There are many other ways, channels, places, other things they can buy. They don't have to choose our products. So we need to make sure that we are delivering value. We're showing customers how this can solve their problem, and we're making it easy for them to make a purchase. I think that Deb really hit that on the head. And I mean, again, there's so many awesome things that were talked about when Dave was discussing, having a service department with like annual contracts and servicing that customer for years and years and years. This is an absolute no-brainer. Not that it's easy. I mean, he said that, not that it's easy, but it's a no-brainer that this needs to happen if we want our industry to grow into the future. We have to be thinking about it. And this time of year is a great time to get started. As things are slowing down a little bit naturally, now is the time to start building out a service pipeline. We've been talking about that a lot for the last couple of years on this show, that we sell products that need to be serviced every single year. They need to be. It's irresponsible for them not to be. So if we know that they have to be serviced, why don't we offer that to the people buying it from us, at the time of purchase and every year thereafter? And they're allowed to say no, that's totally fine. But if we don't service it, a competitor might, and guaranteed, if the competitor is servicing your products, that's not your customer anymore, right? Because now they have the relationship, and that's where they're going to go regardless of the brands that you sell. So that's option A. Option B would be maybe a friend or a brother-in-law or somebody else services it for them, and maybe they do a good job, maybe they don't. Maybe the customer tries to do it themselves, but maybe they don't fully understand how, or it doesn't get serviced, and that's dangerous. So when you think about it from that perspective, it's like, of course, this is what we need to do. And all of the answers of like, I don't have enough staff, I don't have enough time, those are real obstacles for sure. But I'm just thinking like a couple of weeks ago, I was in Florida talking with Mark Stoner from Ashbusters, one of the biggest chimney service companies in the country. And he has like 30 some trucks on the road right now. And he was talking about this exact same thing. And he's like, I just don't get it because, if we need to do this, I'm just going to put 2 more trucks on the road, period. Like, we'll find the work. There's enough of it out there, but you can't steer a parked car. Like, you gotta make it happen. You gotta hire that person. You gotta get that truck on the road if you're going to do it. And I would agree with what he said. Like, we know the demand is there. We know that people need it. Let's hire for it. Let's train it, and let's make it happen. I'm not saying that this is easy, but I am saying that these concepts are simple, and it's something that if we want to run a good business, we need to think about, or there will probably be other companies that become much more attractive to our customers than us. I think the final thing that I want to end on is this. You know, in the last question of the panel discussion, I asked, you know, what do we do about this growing divide between retailers, distributors, and manufacturers? Now, I have just continued to see this grow over the last 4 to 5 years. Now, not for every company, but I would say generally speaking, manufacturers are less connected to their dealers than they should be. And dealers have less loyalty to a given, you know, manufacturer, and distributors are in a tough spot in the middle, being squeezed from every side. And I think that what Zach talked about was so important about how we need to genuinely celebrate the wins that our partners have. We need to do what we say we're going to do when we say we're going to do it. And we need to act like a partner. And I would say, you know, wherever you are listening to this, I'm not saying, you know, every dealer treats their manufacturer or distributor the way that they should. I'm not saying every manufacturer treats their dealer the way they should. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that I would recommend approaching your relationships from a partnership perspective. And if the companies that you're working with don't treat you like a partner, you know, you probably want to have a conversation about that and then try to find someone who does, because that is how we get better. And I think that when we can genuinely, you know, like I quoted St. Thomas Aquinas, if we can genuinely will the good of the other and realize that we are all connected in an ecosystem. And, you know, I mean, it's almost like in, you know, in the movie Elf, when Santa Claus is coming to town and like the boss who works at the toy shop is like, if I go down, we all go down. I think it's kind of one of those things. We need each other in this industry. So let's find the companies that want to treat each other like partners, and let's start there, and it can grow. But I think that idea of being a partner and asking, hey, how can I celebrate the wins of the other people that are in the ecosystem with me, distributors, manufacturers? How can we look at this as a win-win relationship, not a win-lose relationship? I think that's where it's got to start. So, you know, altogether, I think there was a lot there that is really important to think about. And I was honored to be on that stage. And again, to be with Deb and with Dave and with Zach. It was really tremendous, and I think that this opening session was very, very special, and I hope that you were able to take something away from it as well. Well, hey, if this podcast episode today was a blessing for you and you want to support the show financially, you can go to the website itsfiretime.com/join. That's itsfiretime.com/join. And, you know, this show operates on a shoestring budget. And the way that we're able to continue and the way that we've been able to jump up to producing video content this season has been through your guys' support. So we are so thankful for those of you who do support. You know, we try to steward this really well so that there's enough resources to keep going. And we're really thankful for everything that you have provided. If you're not able to support this, that is completely okay. We want this to be a gift and a blessing that helps you continue to grow your business so you can create prosperity for yourselves and for the people that you serve. So thank you to those of you who do support. If you want to, we have some really cool rewards for folks who do sign up to support, just as a way of saying thank you. We see you and we appreciate you. Well, as we close out, there was a lot that was covered in this opening session. I hope that you go to Nashville next year for the HPB Expo. I'm going to be there. I cannot wait for it. We're already starting to talk about the plans that we have for this trade show, about what we can do to have something very similar to the awesome, karaoke night party that we threw here in New Orleans. And we want to try to do something really special in Nashville. So hopefully we see you there. I think that in business, it's so important to spend time outside of the day-to-day. And an event like this is really important because you're connected with other people who are in the same struggle. You're in an environment where you can learn, where you can grow. And every year, I just find that connections are made and things are uncovered for myself that make a huge impact in the years to come. So hopefully we see you there. As Jill talked about in her part of the opening session, this thing rises and falls with all of us together. So we got to be a part of it. Wherever you're at, my hope is that you can start to grow relationships with the people that are around you. Maybe it's through your HPBA affiliate, maybe it's through another channel, but this thing rises and falls together. And it was really cool to hear her heart shared of what the HPBA is doing to protect and grow this industry. And so know that you're a part of it. Know that the work you're doing is not in vain. And I hope that I can see you next year in Nashville face-to-face in the opening session there. So hope you guys have an amazing rest of the week. That is all we have today, and we'll talk again very soon. Thank you for listening to the Fire Time Podcast. To learn more, visit the website itsfiretime.com. Music from this episode was written and recorded by In Bloom out of Portland, Oregon. We thank you for listening to the Fire Time Podcast, where it's never hot enough, slow is fast, and the way to win is to make it so stupidly easy to buy from you that there's no excuse not to. We'll see you next time.